have no value whatsoever and take all the credit, which by putting their bylines next to people's headlines, which has always been the way, and we continue that. So a lot of folks came up to me and said, what are we doing here? Garrett and Zoe have brought together a great coalition and led an initiative that is meant to do nothing short of perhaps realign some thought about Philadelphia, how we do business here. And so in my coverage, I'm a reporter for a technology news site, as Garrett said, called Technically Philly. We cover entrepreneurship, we cover digital access issues. In 3 or 4 years of that coverage, we've begun to change how we see Philadelphia, and that's what I'm set out to do over the next handful of minutes, is to share where we've seen. So my angle will be Philadelphia should own social entrepreneurship. I'm going to tell you what the heck I mean by that. I'm going to tell you why I mean that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what perhaps could be next steps to make that even bolder. So again, Chris Wink, we can skip over that, but yes, this is what I'm going to do. Done. First, what? I'm moving. These jump. So what? First, social entrepreneurship. It's a phrase that's used in a lot of industries. It's a lot of communities. Let's just fake a definition. You can fight with me later. But broadly, I'm thinking social entrepreneurship is keeping impact alongside profit in your mindset. This can happen if you're a nonprofit. This can happen if you're a for-profit. It can happen if you're another organization altogether. But ultimately, we're saying my mission, my impact will align with my profit. Simple as that, right? So that's social entrepreneurship. I don't care what your organization type is, if you're a nonprofit or otherwise. I think we're a little news site, we're a for-profit, and for years we've always had this strange tussle where folks have assumed, well, naturally I'm out to make $1 million. As anyone who knows journalism knows, I'm certainly not doing that. But we're a for-profit. It just happens to be a tax status. We have every intention on putting a positive impact on Philadelphia. I don't understand why you would be here if you didn't want to do that. So that's where that is. So that's what social entrepreneurship is. Why? Why do you care? So lots of studies and lists come out, and we don't always have to listen to them, but the concept that can come out of something like, who is doing this? A handful of folks, I don't remember which service. This is, of course, these slides are a couple weeks old, but as we stand now, in the worst of reputations for Philadelphia, as we often know, although we know Philadelphia is grand, sometimes others don't recognize that, Philadelphia is still seen as a relevant player in social entrepreneurship in the standards of Philadelphia has impact. We have infrastructure, which we'll talk about. So we already, at zero, have a role in social entrepreneurship in the world, for sure. So here are some people, many of you will be involved here. The 25 organizations that Garrett and Zoe associated are also involved. Science Center, Dream It, good company for sure. Well, Green Companies, Green Village is now merged. Elect Next, Hydros. There's an entire infrastructure of startups that put mission first, investors and incubators that put mission first, large-scale institutions that forever, for 50, 60 years, have an institutional prioritization on having a positive impact. We've had this. This is nothing new. All of you already knew this. I want you to recognize, though, that together it's powerful. Sustainability and green tech. I saw Christine Knapp, I believe, from the Greater Philadelphia Innovation Cluster. Sustainability and green technology is a vibrant world outside of consumer-facing products. We have a sustainability hub. Our former governor, Ed Rendell, used to love talking about the solar panel distribution and other vehicles for impact. Philadelphia and its regions have a natural infrastructure there. Nonprofit funding. Again, Garrett and I have talked a bit about. Many of you are in a nonprofit world, many of you are in a for-profit world, and we found that the language, the lexicon of social entrepreneurship has often been siloed. Social entrepreneurship is strictly for nonprofits. Social entrepreneurship is strictly for for-profits. Wrong. Social entrepreneurship is having impact. So you can do that in whatever form you want. So certainly your traditional organizations, your non-traditional organizations that plan on having impact in Philadelphia are grand. Again, this is stuff you know. Karen and other folks are from the city. We've watched an administration that has shown some interest in having transparency. Again, in my reporter hat, I cannot extend beyond the notion that the conversation is there. We always will report as thoroughly as we can, but there's certainly interest and signs of showing some interest in transparency through data, through social media, and other forms. So there you go. There's infrastructure you already know exists. Here's the surprise I will say to you. Philadelphia has problems. I know, this will shock you. I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but since post-World War II decline, we've talked about Philadelphia having problems. That's not what I wanted to do. We've talked about crime, and education, and violence, and segregation, and racial strife, and lack of voter participation, and every social ill you've ever talked about that exists anywhere in the world is in some form in Philadelphia. And guess what? Among the 10 largest cities, Philadelphia is probably among the leaders in those social ills. Now, you may think that this is a problem, because for 50 years, we have made it a problem. We have developed neighborhoods and institutions and culture that works to hide those problems. Our brochures and our conversations and our tours ignore every problem that Philadelphia ever had, and we've tried to create an ecosystem that looks clean and safe and perfect. It's not. So, this is an opportunity, and we're going to talk about why. Because for the past, we've said this is a problem, right? When we cover startups, this is from my world of reporting. When I talk to startups, they say, hey, schools suck. I'm not going to put my kids in them, so I'm leaving. Hey, the investor community doesn't get me, I'm leaving. The investors say, hey, there's no startups that are real, I'm leaving. Brain drain and crime problems, we've always said, this is why we can't succeed. We are 2.5 times the size of Boston, but we'll never meet it because we have these legacy, intractable problems we cannot solve. So again, we've created just institutions. Is this Princeton or Penn? It's Penn. And Penn is an amazing, powerful institution, but they've understandably created a community that has let them exist seemingly outside of the problems that surround them in West Philadelphia. All right, so that's what I've said. What? We define social entrepreneurship. Why? Philadelphia has problems. So how do I connect Philadelphia having problems with the real infrastructure we have to have an impact? Problems should be the solution. This is my pitch on how we should all leave here thinking differently. If you're a startup, if you're a nonprofit, if you're an institution, rather than embracing the past half century and more of ignoring or avoiding or trying to separate ourselves from those intractable problems of our region, we should all adopt our problems as a small sliver of part of all of our missions. So what's that value proposition? I go back to what we sometimes laugh at, but this is truly an opportunity. Philadelphia is the biggest, most troubled city in the country. There are cities with far more troubles. Our Detroit friends and our Baltimore friends, and much of the Midwestern urbanized world that has faced post-industrial decline and does not have the return of the creative community that we have. There are lots of cities that have worse problems. But among our country's largest cities, we are it. We so often compare ourselves to New York or laughably Houston or San Francisco or any of these other large cities. That's foolishness. We are an entirely different reality. Our demographics and our cultural problems, a quarter of our population are in the poverty limit. More than half of our population has no college degree. We have limitless problems. And that's an opportunity. Because if you are a startup that wants to make people vote more accurately, like Elect Next, who I encourage you to look into. If you are an institution that wants to improve schools, if you have an education startup, I don't know why you would exist anywhere other than Philadelphia, because there is scale usage here, we've a large number of people, and we have problems. If you can solve it in Philadelphia, you can solve it anywhere. E. Digby Baltzell was this great Penn sociologist, and I'm reading this book, Puritan Boston, Quaker Philadelphia, that all of you should read. It's dense and boring and fantastic. And in it, he shares how kind of the lead developers of the Philadelphia Museum of Art are saying in the 20s, the 30s, forgive me for not knowing the exact date, are talking about how every stone we built on the Philadelphia Museum of Art was fought by a civic leader of Philadelphia. And that's not necessarily meaning city leaders, that's everything, culturally. It's an institutional issue that we've all seen. This is an opportunity. We have problems here, so let's solve them. So here's what I think would happen next, and what part of this conversation may align toward as I wrap up. We all know this perception game, right? We've watched over the past 2 censuses our slowing of college retention. Deb Diamond from Campus Philly is here and talk about the brain drain is largely being stemmed. We're getting smarter, we're getting more educated, we're getting more talented. We still have severe problems, but we're slowly addressing them. but perception always lags reality. So there's kind of this little triangle, I think in geometry, so forgive me. But we would start low, right? We need to first have our region understand. Meetings like this, and I applaud Garrett and Zoe bringing folks like this together. First, we have to understand that though we have problems, we also have remarkable opportunity. And that's what's genuinely unique about us. Also, it's certainly continuing to build work. All of you are probably, you have your pet project or you have your role or your job, and all of you should go forth and think, hey, how do I make Philadelphia an inch better tomorrow? And if we do those two things, I have full confidence that perception always lags reality. If we continue to build in our communities like technology or business or social activism or education, and if we continue to work on them, the impact will be there. This is, of course, as you all know, this is a Nick's roast pork sandwich, which secretly is the best sandwich in Philadelphia. For me, it conveys the idea that finding local solutions. What the rest of the world perceives us as is not what we have to be. I will die a happy man if I never read another newspaper lead with a cheesesteak reference in it, because the form is gone. We are far more than so help me God cheesesteak and Rocky references. We all might, if nothing else, none of you will say yes. You never have to describe us as a cheesesteak or Rocky City again, I assure you, because the Nick's roast pork is stronger. And quite frankly, all of you are stronger and better than what Philadelphia is often perceived as. So we're going to find and use those local solutions, and all of you are them. And my last kind of call to action that I think is relevant, hopefully, and I would bet most of you do not know most of the other people in the room, which again is an applause to Garrett, Zoe, and their team. All of you are not normally in the room together. Yay! You are very different types of people from different worlds. That's fantastic. There are lots of organizations, though, that are doing long-term planning. For this, I just pulled up the Planning Commission's Philadelphia 2035 vision. The Economy League is doing their long-term visioning for a greater Philadelphia. Lots of organizations are doing these long-term plans. So I always encourage, fight redundancy and encourage working together. All of you should meet. You will not be allowed to leave. Garrett's actually locked the doors. No one's allowed to leave unless you've met at least one person you do not already know and understand how they orient to you and how you all will make Philadelphia an inch better tomorrow and attract new talent to do interesting things to make Philadelphia better. So that, in my summation, is why Philadelphia should own social entrepreneurship. To summarize, we have the distinct, clear infrastructure. Game zero, outsiders already recognize we have the infrastructure. Step two, we have a crap load of problems to solve. And if you're an entrepreneur and an innovator, you recognize problems or opportunities. They're not obstacles, they're opportunities. So that's step two, we have them. And three, we are the scaled usage and we have the unique social capital to do something positive. That is why Philadelphia is a viable opportunity for being the certainly global, but at least national hub for social entrepreneurship. And our discussion will follow a little bit more about what that means and why Punk Ave and the Pact Alliance, being organizers of the same event, a web design firm and a fantastic story technology membership group, can come together and do interesting things together because we're going to make Philadelphia better for it. So that is my pitch from a lowly journalist, having just seen 3 years of entrepreneurs complaining, and this is how I think we can make Philadelphia better. Thank you very much.